appreciate this gift. I always liked outer space. It says zoom telescope 15 by minus 40 times 40 millimeters. It gives you only so much depth. But the story behind this gift is actually... Let's listen to that. I'm going to unbox this telescope. I've said in other videos that tapping does not really do it much for me, although it does it for a lot of other people. I've had this box and this gift for, since I was about 9 or 10 years old. It's been at least, well, let's just say it's over 25 years ago. Actually, it's more than that. It's probably more than 35 years ago. 30 years ago. Yeah, definitely more than 30 years ago. As you can see, it's kind of worn. I'm going to go ahead and take the lid off this. Here is the telescope. It says carton, and of course the size of the telescope. This telescope used to have let me move the box out of the way. This telescope used to have caps to go on the end here to protect them. I guess they got lost over the years. There's a little bit of dust, as anything with a lens can easily get. But I've had this telescope quite a while, and the story behind the telescope... I wanted to show you something before I tell you the story. Right there. This doesn't have a whole lot of tapping power to it, but that right there is where you can take the tripod and then you can hook it into the telescope. I'll show you. This tripod is not very tall. It's more of a desktop telescope. Sometimes I used to use the telescope just by hand. Not always in the best of ways, but anyway. The purpose of the telescope and the story behind it was I read a book when I was about about 8 or 9 also. And the book was kind of like a Dr. Seuss book, but just a little more realistic. And it was called You Will Go to the Moon. And that was such a dream of mine. I would go to the moon. The pictures were obviously from around the 1950s or 60s. In the story, they depicted a boy who loved to look at outer space. And his parents took him down to a place like NASA. And one day the astronauts and he got to go in the rocket. And they went into outer space to the moon. How this boy got permission to do that, I don't know. But it talked about different things such as the 3 chambers on the rocket where before the shuttle, long before the space shuttle was created, the rockets apparently had chambers. I'm not a rocket scholar, so some of you may correct me on this, but I don't even know if they're called chambers, but each piece of the rocket, except for the one compartment where the astronauts would sit, was filled with fuel. And as the rocket raced toward the moon, or toward a midway space station, it's the one that you see in cartoons that looks like a steering wheel. And it's supposed to revolve. I don't think it even exists. There used to be a Skylab. Maybe there still is. But it didn't look like the one in the picture. All the wonders of childhood. So, as they raced toward this space station, each of those chambers, except the one they were sitting in, would eventually run out of fuel. Because, in case you don't realize it, the moon is just hundreds, thousands of millions, perhaps miles away from the Earth. And I know that I didn't do my research because this video is not supposed to be about science as much as it is about Christmas. So maybe another day I can do a science one and do my homework a little better. But the chambers would fall off and be released into outer space once they ran out of fuel. And so they got to the space station and rested a while, and I think there was even a movie theater inside of it, if I remember right. Then they would wait and dock into a moon car or a moon rocket, a different ship, and it took them all the way to the moon. And finally the boy got to the moon and got to ride in a moon car and walk on the moon. And I just loved that book. I just thought, I want to do that someday. And so there you have it. My parents bought me this little telescope. It has focus knobs, different things. Let me see if you can actually see through it. No, the light's too bright. But I wanted to share that with you because I still have it. It brings back good memories of Christmas. It was an exciting Christmas for me when I got this telescope.